All right, everyone. Thank you so much for being on today's Lunch with Haley. My name is Jeff Staats. I'll introduce myself here in a little bit. But today we're going to be talking about crafting the ultimate candidate experience. We'll be bringing our panelists on. They're a lot smarter than I am, and you'll want to hear from them. But, really, I just want to, talk a quick second about why we sort of talked about and put this panel together in terms of crafting the ultimate candidate experience. And it's really about, a lot of things that you're hearing right now. Obviously, we're going to talk about the labor market. We're going to talk about, all sorts of things that are happening, the Great Resignation. We're going to talk about, things like, not getting enough applicant flow. All these things, kind of the perfect storm. And, what we need to figure out too is when candidates kind of rule this market, they can come and go as they please. They can accept whatever job they want. There's a lot of things happening, and we need to make sure that the experience is there. And we've talked a lot about, in other panels I've been on and other, webinars I've watched where it was really focused around just holistic, kind of high level, things about, hey, this is what you need to do to create a great experience. What I want to do with this panel is really find the right cast of characters here and make sure that we're talking about the entire experience, not just automation, not just chatbot, but what does it take to create the ultimate candidate experience? So that's what we're going to do here today. Couple ground rules. Let us know if you're having issues with any sort of AV, anything around sound or anything with the video. We are going to keep our videos on. If that does present a problem, we can turn those off. So let us know. We know that there's going to be 4 of us on here to talk about this, but let us know there. You can also adjust on your screen. So if you want to see more of us as we go through the questions and we kind of build this, or less of us, you can adjust it on your screen there. Also, if you have any questions, I'll be monitoring the question area. So let us know if you have any questions. And then also anything, as you think about it, just let us know there. So let's get going. What I want to get to is before we even talk about some of these areas of how to create a great experience, I want to introduce the panel, and I really appreciate them joining us here. So we've got 3 very, very smart people, and they're going to do a wonderful job. So I want to start, and I will do no justice in being able to talk about them. So I'm going to let them talk about themselves. And so first up, we have Ashley. So Ashley, if you want to come on up and introduce.
All right. Hi, everyone. How are you doing? I'm Ashley. I am newly Chief Growth Officer at Tracker. I have been in the staffing and recruiting space for about 15 years, almost 2 years now with Tracker. So I'm just super thrilled to be on this webinar and talk about what I like talking about, which is marketing and recruiting and candidate experience.
Awesome. Thank you. All right, next up, Matt.
Hey everyone, thanks for having me on. Matt Dichter with Staffing Engine. Thanks to Jeff and Dave and the team at Haley for hosting us. Jeff, don't be so hard on yourself. You're a really sharp guy.
No. You guys are smarter.
And, I'm happy to be here. Staffing Engine is incredibly focused on the candidate experience, big part of what we do. A little bit about myself. You might see some Patriots gear in the background. I'm from Boston originally. I have been on the West Coast for about 5.5 years. I'm now in San Diego. Prior to Staffing Engine, I was at Bullhorn for 8.5 years and have worked with staffing and recruiting agencies of all shapes and sizes, from SMB startups to mid-market to enterprise, and across many different verticals from IT professional to light industrial to travel nursing and healthcare. So excited to be part of this panel today and share what we've learned.
Awesome. Thanks, Matt. And our other panelist, Mike, come on down.
All right. Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate you having me today. My name is Mike Redden. I'm coming to you from Chicago, Illinois. I spent 13 years of my career, first job out of college at careerbuilder.com, really spending time on different data, media, tech solutions, traveling the country, working with companies, staffing firms, whatnot. I spent the last few years building a company called Flash Recruit, which was a recruitment messaging company acquired by a company called Talent Inc. And so I am there now, and I spend pretty much all of my time working on different innovative tech products for Talent Inc.'s partner companies. So very much focused on, candidate experience and how to improve that process every single day through different tech solutions. So I'm excited to be here, chat with you all, and hopefully provide some value to the Haley marketing community.
Yeah, and what's great about it is that you guys are all integration partners with Haley Marketing. So really appreciate that and the partnership that we can build, and just being able to give different perspectives on the candidate experience. So last but not least, Jeff Staats, Chief Marketing Officer for Haley, Cleveland based. The Patriots note really hurt me because Cleveland is the epitome of almost reaching the pinnacle of something and then just falling way back down and just being drama filled. So that did hurt me a little bit. But yeah, I'm Cleveland based, coming to you live from my basement. And so I don't know what that says, but I've been doing automation. A lot of the things that I focus on, which is why I wanted to have you guys on, is I focus a lot on automation, which I know is one piece of the puzzle. But I've been doing, automation. I say engagement and automation, but the engagement side of that, and then also the process automation side since 2004. So I've been doing it a while with old platforms. There's been a lot there. So from HubSpot to Marketo and all the different platforms there, Sense and Herefish now in the staffing space. So came directly from a staffing firm, Talent Launch, which is a nationwide network of staffing and recruitment firms. So it has about 10 brands, I believe now, headquartered in Cleveland and all around the U.S. And then actually was head of marketing for Able, which was just acquired by Bullhorn about, I think, 4 months ago, which was great. And you were able to really see that build up. That actually came out of Talent Launch, as sort of filling a need around the onboarding space. So that was really great to be able to have that success story and just be a part of that whole story. So yeah, it's been really great. So again, thanks guys for being on. We can definitely get in here. What I want to do is kick it off, and you have to fill out an email and, to get this gated piece of content. So I gave about 10% of it, so I don't get yelled at by anybody. But it is important, the whole, talent acquisition ecosystem. There is so much more to this document. So, but I at least wanted to point it out that what we fall into now is the power of choice. And, when you look at everything from sourcing, engage, we're going to kind of build this, this ultimate candidate experience through those different areas. But there's just so much choice out there. You guys that have been in staffing, I think I've been in staffing 6 years. So maybe, I've been in there a long time, maybe not. But, those that have been in for a while, maybe there were 10 tech companies, and now there's, 1,000 and all these little, niches of where everything goes. So there is so much choice in what a company can do. And really the point of this is, what does success look like? That's what I want us to focus on right now. If I'm a staffing firm, or I am starting a staffing firm, or I'm trying to fix the staffing firm, how do we use all of the choice, the 10% of this that's in here, and how do we use all these pieces? And let's break it down and say, what should work well, and what does success look like in each one of these? So that's what we really want to get to when we talk about this. And there's just so much out there. So hopefully what we can get out of this is to really help staffing firms, anyone that's on here, like choose, what to do. Are they doing the right things? Are they, do they have the right tech stack in place? Are there other tech pieces that they may not have heard of that may be a good choice for them? So really, just breaking it all down. So what I want to do too is kind of start with some opening questions, and I think we'll go ladies first on this one. And just kind of prime it, start up 30,000 foot. As you're watching the Masters, watching opening day, everything else that's going on right now that was an ill-timed lunch with Haley. But as you're doing all this and you're paying attention on your fourth screen, let's start it off as, what's the one thing that is really shocking you guys about this labor market? And ladies first on this.
Yeah, I mean, it's been shocking to me just how incredibly hard it is to hire right now, whether you're staffing a recruiting company or just internally for me, like wanting to expand our marketing or sales department. It's finding people, but also it's just very competitive.
Yeah, and going off that, I mean, everyone on this call knows that there's been a pretty big paradigm shift from where we were 10 years ago, obviously in an employer-favored market where there were more candidates than job orders, and it's been a total 180 where now there's a plethora of job orders and not a lot of quality talent that's ready to go to work. And how we can find technologies that helps address those challenges and helps people find the needle in the haystack, helps ensure the fact that the candidate and the worker constantly gets attention and support from the staffing agency is very important. There's also obviously over the last couple of years been a really big shift towards remote and hybrid workforce, which almost sounded inconceivable 4 or 5 years ago, and the pandemic changed all that. And that's also had an interesting effect on technologies. Like, there's not any staffing firm that I speak with that hasn't adopted and increased usage of tools like Microsoft Teams or Slack or internal collaboration tools to match people that are both coming into the office, but also remote employees. So that's been a pretty big change as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, one of the things I think is interesting, like supply and demand is always going to change from a candidate perspective, kind of based on what's going on in the economy. I think what's interesting recently is, partly due to the pandemic, but like when people are really trying to look into why there's so many fewer people in the workforce today. I was having that conversation with a friend recently, and there's been other people that have published this, but there's a lot of theory around like when retirement plans kind of started in the US, right? Like in the late 70s. And so a lot of those workers where maybe would have in the past worked into their 60s, into their 70s, now have 401ks that are helping them retire a lot earlier. And so the pandemic, yes, maybe pushed some people out of the workforce that aren't coming back, but they pushed a lot of people out that don't need to come back. And so, I think in our space, we have to figure out how to get, some of these younger workers into, spaces that we support. So, yeah.
Well, it's that delicate balance of like, it's a weird message we're sending because we're, the staffing industry, and I've been in, as you guys have in, the theme for the last 3 years has been digital transformation, automation, digital transformation, still digital transformation, and all of that says, what can we do more of with less people? And so we're fighting that battle of, we're telling everybody that technology makes a lot of sense, but you don't need enough. You don't need all these people, but then you kind of do now because we need the economy to keep going. And then you have all this technology, and a lot of times with staffing firms that, the technology is supposed to solve everything, but you still need somebody to run it. You still need the strategy of it, and you still need almost like the audibles that happen, when, an exception, that happens versus a rule. So I think you've got all this, couple in the Facebook jobs, and, it's that goes away. Applications are down, but use more tech, but don't use enough, but buy more job. Like, the one thing that's shocking me is just like, there's 18 different directions that you're supposed to go all at one time. And I'm like, I don't know how you do it. Like, I think it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy.
And digital transformation. Go ahead, Ashley.
I was gonna say, ideally, and we've just launched automation at Tracker, and I had some time with the Herefish people, and I've used automation in my previous roles at staffing companies, and it should, at the end of the day, it needs to empower the people you have and allow you to grow and allow everybody to do more with less, So yeah. I think it definitely goes hand in hand, and I think there's a case to be made for you need both, right? It's not just running the technology, it's also doing the human element, doing the recruiter bit that a technology or a canned email can't do.
Yeah.
Matt, go ahead.
I was just going to say, digital transformation is not an overnight or one and done kind of thing. It's a constant evolution. And like as an example of that, if you started a digital transformation project 3 years ago, but didn't adapt and change that to what's happened over the past couple of years, then you're going to get left behind. You constantly need to look at what's going on in the market and then adapt that digital transformation strategy to match that what's going on.
Well, it's like, you know, building a boat as it's sailing. Like, you know, it probably should, you know, you want to step off and take some time, but you can't. So, yeah, I mean, it's just, there's just so many forces at work right now. All right, let's move on. When we talk about kind of that opening questions, where do you guys see staffing firms falling short regarding their candidate experience? Where's kind of the most common denominator here of either what they're not paying attention to or what they can't pay attention to, or, you know, definitely. And I think let's start with Matt on this one.
Yeah, I work with a lot of staffing firms, and you'd be surprised how many that I've spoken with or worked with make these really rather large investments in technology, but don't always put themselves in their candidate's shoes. And you think you know what the right technology is to implement, but until you actually put yourselves in the candidate's shoes, go through that whole process from start to finish, from application to onboarding to credentialing if you're in certain industries, to timekeeping, to getting your pay stubs. A lot of those have a lot of friction in between them, and you want to ultimately create as a cohesive experience as possible. So it's absolutely critical from a staffing agency standpoint to actually put themselves in the candidate's shoes and go through the process of the software that you've implemented from their perspective. The other thing that's interesting is that, I've seen a lot of posts and read a lot about employers right now who have complained about getting ghosted during the interview process by their candidates. But it used to be the reverse. It used to be there were so many candidates that they were the ones getting ghosted. And I don't think that that agencies have really thought about that. And there's a lot of tools that are out there, whether it's automation or redeployment, that can help with that, so that you are always keeping track of the silver medalists and bronze medalists to make sure that you don't just drop off from their process.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Ashley, Mike, anything you want to add?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what I was alluding to before. I mean, that automation, the technology really should enable recruiters to have more human connection, not less. And with everybody needing more candidates, to Matt's point, there's really no excuse to under-nurture bronze or silver or candidates that maybe aren't 100% fit right now, or they don't fit the job that you're looking for right now, but they could be a fit down the road or for the job order that comes in tomorrow. So you kind of, that's the beauty of automation, is where you can create these very empowering sequences or workflows or streamlined best practices that ensure no one's falling through the cracks.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, Matt, I think it's interesting too. Really great point on like actually going through your own candidate experience, and not just doing it once, like continually doing that, because things change, right? Week by week, month by month, whether it be your vendor, whatever things you all need to change. I think that's super important. The other thing that I've seen in the same boat, right? Like multi-million-dollar investments in tech, and no one takes advantage of it, right? And so ensuring that your team's empowered and trained to actually take advantage. I'm a victim of it, right? I probably use 5% of my iPhone's capabilities, right? But I think that there's an opportunity to create a process around holding teams accountable to leveraging everything that your firm's investing in. And I would say, beyond finding the right tech stack, closely behind it is making sure that you take advantage of it, because you can have some not so great technology, but if you really leverage it the right way, it can work really well. And the opposite can happen, right? You can have the best tech that exists, it's the perfect stack, and it can still fall short based on how it's being taken advantage of. So
yeah, we'll go to the next question, but I think that's a really great point. Both, and do you use your iPhone as a phone? I don't know. Like it was, it's you don't need to. It's everything else is there. So but like
I
process.
did
I
just
think,
check. Tiger's still even. So
okay, all right, guys, there we go, time stamped right here. So, but no, I think that it is. I think the lack of process. Even what we do on the automation side when we talk with staffing firms, first thing I'll say is, okay, where's the gap in process? And they're like, well, we don't really have the process set, or we change the process with the technology that we bring in. And I think that is a huge no-no with that, because they find a piece of technology and let's create a process around that technology. But do you think you're going to have it, 2 years from now, because as everything changes. So I think if you don't have that defined process, or you haven't revisited it in a while, and then walk through it as your candidate, I think you should be doing that right now. All right, let's go to the one more tee up question, and then I want to build this ultimate experience with you guys. So last opening question is, what technologies are, now must-haves? Like, everything's a nice to have, everything's cool, but, before we start building this and looking at each section, what do you guys think is like a must buy, a must purchase, a must use for staffing firms? And we'll round it out with Mike. You start this round.
yeah, cool. All right, so I tried to think of some specific technologies here. Here's my advice would be, if you're evaluating new technology, in this space, I think that there's so many well-established players that have been around a long time. They're well-funded, that are very well integrated into the kind of, that have done a lot of the heavy thinking around process for you. So that would be my first piece of advice, right? Like, make sure that you're finding the right vendor that's kind of been around the block, right? Everybody here today, we've been there. Unless it's like this, cutting edge, bleeding edge tech that's brand new that no one's ever heard of before, like maybe you can deal with some growing pains there. But there's really not a need. Like, a lot of these large organizations have thought through the pain points of SMB and mid-market and enterprise, and they can support it, which is really important. And the smaller you are, the more support you're going to need. So I think that's important. And I'll go back to what I'd said previously. Holding teams accountable to a process, as well as like leveraging the tech the right way, I think is important. There's plenty of like development tools, right? Like project management tools to use. There's a lot of new tech for tracking process. Asana is one, ASANA, that I've used in the past. I don't use it currently, but it's been really, really great to make sure that like the right touch points are happening like across the board, maybe not just specific to candidate touch point, but other pieces of the business that are really important to ensure a holistic business process is being followed. So that's one tech that I would potentially take a look at. There's free versions of it, so like very easy to go in there, play around, mess around with it with a small group and see if it's something that makes sense.
Awesome. What do you guys think?
You want to take the next?
Yeah, so I work at Tracker. Obviously, I'm going to say, having a well-integrated applicant tracking system and CRM automation, all of that needs to, that's a must-have. And I don't think there's probably many people on the call that don't have that in some format. The key is, to Michael's point, is using it correctly. To your point, Jeff, setting up the process ahead of time. What is the ideal process? And then build out your workflows, build out your automations to support that. Take your number one recruiter. What do they do? Let's make sure we, amplify that as much as possible. As far as other tech, it's interesting, and I'm going to go old school, but direct mail has its place in staffing and recruiting, and especially in a format that I've been seeing. People have been approaching me, and I love this idea. There's several companies out there that do sort of on-demand gift sending, and it can be branded, and it can be, welcome kits for a new candidate who's starting a role, a redeployment, and the best part is most of these have the ability to be integrated into whatever you're using for your sequences anyway. So step one, email, send a, hey, good luck on your first day text, send, a LinkedIn, whatever, and then send them a gift. So having that well-rounded multi-touch, especially in the digital age, but powered by digital, I think is a very cool kind of way to differentiate yourself as well. What are this Postal IO is one, and Reach Desk is another one.
Coastal, Sendoso, they're all a good part of the strategy to have.
Yeah.
I'll kind of answer this in the frame of candidate experience. You absolutely must have a strong foundation with a digitization platform, like a tracker. I have a Bullhorn background. If you're in light industrial, you're probably familiar with Aviante and TempWorks. That lays the groundwork. And then from there, we kind of look at the candidate experience in tiers. And you have to be able to meet candidates wherever they are across multiple channels. Some candidates prefer phone and text message, so you have to have a VoIP platform and a text messaging platform. Some prefer receiving, email campaigns, so you have your automation platforms. We view chatbots and artificial intelligence as up and coming, and certainly if you look at industries like banking and healthcare, 90% of customer transactions get solved through that. And so Staffing Engine built the technology to help, meet that new demographic of millennials and Gen Zers who want to have that channel. And then you see the business transformation app, like the worker apps. So your work-ins and time saved and, arrived. And those are sort of new forward-thinking tools that allow for, once a candidate becomes an employee, giving them that sort of on-demand phone app. And I think those are all important, especially the last two are more forward-thinking, but will become the norm in the coming years.
No, I think what you guys said is perfect, because I think you touched on the fact that there's core tech, there's candidate-based tech, there's process-based tech. I mean, I think, and I would take a step back, and I know we got to move on because we got to build this thing. But I think there is, looking at it from all those different angles and testing it from all those different angles. And maybe that's a person, maybe a CIO or a CIO level in the staffing firm, or even a partner, to think about that. Like, how does all of this work together? I almost think like a chief experience officer, or something that really says, like, here's all the things, because it's not just the candidate, it's how does it affect the recruiter? How does it affect the client? And I basically segued myself into, now we'll get into building this. And so, what we do at Haley is from an automation standpoint, is we really break these things out. Is what are you doing on the sourcing, the qualifying, the hire, the retain, the redeploy? And we use this map when we build out automation campaigns, and just, do you have these core automation campaigns? But I think the purpose of this and how we want to build it and how we're kind of, talking about this today is there are multiple facets. It's not just the candidate. The candidate experience is great, but again, recruiter or the company, the staffing firm, the client, how does it make life better for everybody? Because the candidate will be happier when the recruiter's happier, when the client is happier. Everybody's just has a great experience. So that's what I want to do, to tee this thing off and kind of go into each one of these sections. We'll start with sourcing, and we'll kind of walk through what that candidate experience is with you guys. And then, and really figure it out. Like, what do you guys think, are the best, either pieces of technology or experience getters or aha moments that they should be focusing on in each one of these sections. So let's kick it off. Ladies first, Ashley again. So we've got this large bucket of sourcing and attracting, and, we've got to go find these candidates. They don't want to work. They don't want to apply now. They don't, all these forces. So, again, what are staffing firms missing in this? What should they take advantage of in this section? How do we enhance what they're already doing?
Absolutely. Sourcing is probably one of my favorite things to talk about.
Awesome.
And I think, in our industry, it's been sort of typical to look at it as a numbers game. I want to get as many candidates in my database through the door, whichever, as I can. And if that's not the right one, move on. I think we really have to, and I think a lot of companies already are, is sort of rethink how we're looking at this. Quality over quantity. Sourcing can be done en masse, but it also needs to be very strategic. Also making sure that you're taking care of the candidates that are already in your database with these things that we've been talking about, nurturing and redeployment, and kind of ensuring that your brand is established in the way that you want it to be in your industry and in your market. I think sourcing is part making your jobs discoverable and part having recruiters that can be empowered to go out and find and engage candidates. And a lot of that comes back to having that winning workflow, winning process that you can amplify over your entire team.
Nice.
Yeah, I like talking about sourcing and attracting talent because it reminds me a lot of sales prospecting. And there's a lot of good tools out there for staffing and recruiting agencies to go out and find the candidates. You've got, Dichter and TextKernel, which can help you search across different job boards. You've got newer tools like SourceBreaker and HiringSolve that do more of that AI searching and job matching. I mean, we're also seeing a really big rise in offshore sourcing companies that supplement folks' internal U.S.-based operations. I think that there's a good time and place for that too. The bigger challenge and things that I see staffing and recruiting agencies struggle with is striking that balance between automation and personalization. You want to have be able to reach out to this big pool of candidates that you have at scale. But the problem is we've all been bombarded with those LinkedIn requests and emails where it's not personal at all, it's generalized, and I don't respond to those. I delete those right away. But when people do their homework, reference, where I went to school or last position, I'll answer those phone calls all day because they've done their homework. And I would suspect that when I'm reaching out to prospective staffing agencies to do business with, I want to do that same amount of homework that I'd want a recruiter to do in me. So I kind of look at the two very similar, and I work with a lot of staffing agencies to help with that strategy as well.
Nice.
Yeah, Matt, I love that. I mean, I come from a sales background, and I'm continually amazed at the lack of effort that goes into sales outreach. So I totally agree there. I think that the other interesting piece with LinkedIn and different sourcing tools, beyond personalization, is that there's I have a lack of trust in some of the data. And so, LinkedIn profile, resume, that's kind of the space that Talent Inc. lives in, right? We look at 10 million resumes a year, and we work with candidates on how to improve their story and how to kind of tell their story of what they've done over the last 5 years, which if I had to do that and put that into bullets on a piece of paper, it's really challenging. And so we have to be careful in this space that we don't trust, one, the input there on the doc, and then two, right? So be creative, and also, maybe take a chance on some candidates that don't have the right keywords, right? But you did the extra effort to search for things that maybe they don't have on their profile yet, right? Those are the candidates that aren't talking to other employers, right? Because they haven't updated their profiles and their resumes and whatever else. So, take a look at databases and maybe look back 2 years, 3 years, and find the candidates that have been in the market at certain roles for a couple of years. But the other piece is, it doesn't matter how great your ML matching is within your ATS or this, that, and the other. It's still based on two inputs, right? So that input is typically a resume or CV and a job description. And we all know, everyone I'm sure on this call knows, that they're both imperfect. And so so a lot of candidates get automatically screened out by the tech. And so we have to be careful there to ensure that we're actually taking a look at some candidates that they could be automatically being screened out due to the fact that they don't have keyword SEO or a certain role where they've done SEO for the last couple of years. It's just not in their resume because they're not a professional resume writer. So that would be where, maybe I would spend a little bit of extra time beyond the personalization piece. It's just, making sure that what we are looking at, taking a chance on some candidates and maybe doing some outreach to gather some of the actual data so that it's up to date.
And there's lots of functionality out there that can help you do that en masse. And I mean, Tracker has a LinkedIn integration that can pull in information from someone's LinkedIn. We've got watchdogs and things like that, which integrate with job boards to help further. So there's lots of resources and lots of places where a candidate could, to your point, house information where you can build out a smarter profile for them that's going to get matched better. At Dijkstra, external, I mean, there's of great data opportunities.
All right, good stuff. There's a lot there. We could go we only have 25 minutes, so I don't want We could go there for another 3 hours, but let's keep going. So there's enough on that side. Okay, candidate applies. You know, how do we make this part a great experience? What are we missing? Let's start with Mike.
Sure. Okay, so I would say there's two things that I've seen companies be really successful with, and the first is just the speed in which they get back to candidates, right? So whether it be real-time, automated, phone call, email, it doesn't matter, but that the speed right now is so critical, right? That there's a lot of data that would suggest the first recruiter that gets to a candidate, you know, has the best chance to place that candidate or hire them. And so I think creating a process around speed and holding people accountable to that process so that candidates you can get in touch with them quickly is super important. That'd be step one. If that isn't in place today, it's a simple fix that someone, of course, would need to manage to ensure it happens, but I think it's super impactful. The second piece, similar to kind of what we were just talking about, you know, Ashley brought up the different tools that can help build out profiles and help enhance somebody's documentation prior to submitting the candidate. I think that's really important. We're launching something with Haley right now that helps analyze a resume and CV against your job description and deliver the data back to the recruiter for the sole purpose of helping that recruiter, one, convert more traffic on the Haley Career Portal, but most importantly, help the recruiter really take a look at what's important for the employer or their customer, and then what their document says and shows, so that they can find the mismatches and either hopefully help the candidate improve that, provide some some feedback to the candidate how they can improve it, but ultimately, you know, the resume and your profile is going to be used throughout the whole process, right? And if it tells your story in a way that you don't want it to be told, well, there's some quick and easy things you can do to give yourself a better chance of getting placed, or to give yourself a better chance of placing your candidate with your customers.
Yeah, I'm going to go off that, and I'll spend a minute here just because it's an area where Staffing Engine has spent a lot of time thinking about and building solutions for. But going off what Mike said about speed, during the application process, it's 100% critical to get that candidate in touch with a recruiter ASAP. The problem is a lot of people are rolling off shifts at all hours of the day. They're not applying to jobs during your normal 9 to 5 or 8 to 5, whenever your recruiters are typically in front of a computer. They're applying late at night or overnight or on the weekends. And many times there isn't a recruiter in front of a desk to answer those inquiries right away. And this is going to go a little bit into the next question you have, Jeff, but it's just not fast enough having someone apply and wait for a recruiter to get back to them. In 2022, it needs to be faster. And so Staffing Engine and companies like Staffing Engine have spent time building tools that allow for basically a virtual assistant or a 24/7 assistant to help out the recruiter or salespeople and be there, you know, regardless of channel, whether it's on their website, whether it's social media, whether it's texting, a business-enabled phone number, to be able to answer a lot of those qualification questions in an automated fashion. And then once they're qualified, utilize tools to help them get in front of a recruiter as fast as humanly possible.
Do we want to move into the next question, or because it
Sure.
does? I do think that there is, you know, and I did that purposely. There is a time lag. And I think, you know, again, I wanted to break these out, but there can be a time lag. And I think, you know, what we do in terms of, you know, when somebody does apply, if we don't have that automation, or should we have that automation? And, you know, I know, Matt, you talked about it. I don't know if you want to keep going with it and kind of put that in there to kick this one off, but, you know, it is an important part. What do we do?
Yeah, just as an example of, you know, one of the things that you can do to minimize that time lag, but we're working with, you know, travel nursing agencies that have deployed a live chat solution on their website and social media, so that, you know, they keep that on even over the weekend, so that if a traveler or nurse comes in and they want to talk to someone right away, if someone on their teams, on their phone or wherever they might be, wants to respond to that inquiry, you know, we can put them in touch on demand with a recruiter in real time and get them answers to their questions, or have them schedule a meeting for the next day whenever it's good for the candidate. But there's a lot that can be done that will help eliminate that time lag in between application and live conversation.
Yeah, I think it's transparency. I think that's what the candidate wants, is let me know where I am in the process. I always think of it as like the Domino's pizza tracker. Like, where am I at in the process? I don't think we can ever get there, but
Yeah.
I just think it's so important, because they're applying. They're not just applying to one job. They're applying to probably 7, and it's really whoever gets them first.
Yeah, and the means of application, or the way that people go about finding jobs, varies so much between demographics and applicants. And so it's ultimately the agency's responsibility to have someone who can service each one of those channels, whether it's phone, email, text message, live chat, automated chat, because we're in such a talent-starved market. If you don't have one of those, the next agency will, and you'll lose out on candidates.
I think it's something worth kind of promoting across recruiting and sales, and kind of no matter where they are in the process with, who it is that they're trying to sell. It's, even if you don't have an update, even if it's like, yeah, I still haven't heard back from the client on your submission or whatever, you still can find a reason to reach out, a reason to, hey, have you seen this article from our blog on interview tips? I mean, there's always something that you can use. And again, mix up the format, send them a text, send them an email, connect on LinkedIn. So between content and just a human connection, there should always be some sort of reason why you can keep that steady beat of connection.
It's funny, because I've never heard of a candidate getting fired up over receiving too many messages from the recruiter or from the company. It's usually they don't receive enough. And,
right.
I don't know where I am in the process, but yeah. And then, even Haley Marketing, I mean, we work with our clients on blogging and SEO and social media. We have all this content. Shoot it out there. There's one reason to do it. Stay in front of them. Mike, anything on this one, or do we want to?
No, I mean, I agree with everything that Ashley and Matt talked through. I think that the communication is important, right? Like, regardless of like the step, and also like kind of the inbound component to it. But I've heard from so many candidates that they just don't know what's happening in the process, and they don't get feedback, right?
Right.
So what's happening? How many people are in the mix? Where am I at in the process? It's stressful to find a new job opportunity, especially if you're out of work, right? So like talking to a lot of candidates, recruiters have a really nice opportunity to truly help somebody find a job, and it's hard, it's painful, and they're not professionals at it. And so sometimes we overlook little pieces of feedback that might be really helpful, right? Like, here's what I heard. And sometimes it could be painful to deliver some of it, but if you do it the right way, you're going to create a relationship forever. And those are the people that repeat, right? Those are the people that, will come back and, provide you referrals or whatever else, because you were the catalyst for helping them get the job. So I think that's a really, really important component.
Yeah. And I almost want to say, and we'll move on to the next one, it's okay if it's automated. I was at one staffing world, I think it was Ponkage and Sense, where he said that, 90% of candidates know it's an automated message. Like, it's, you want it to be human, but you kind of know that it's happening, but that's okay, because you'd rather do more than less.
Yeah, it's better to, even if it's automated, you'd rather have that than nothing at all. So. Right.
Yes.
In an automation sequence, having steps built in that are more of a human, personal outreach, even just a reminder to the owner of the sequence, hey, call so-and-so today, or hey, I think there's a lot of good combinations.
I love that.
Yeah. Well, Ashley, you touched on this one. So the candidate is hired on by the staffing firm. They're trying to get them to work. And I think you mentioned this, where it was about the submittal is, what can we do to keep them engaged and informed? I think we touched on pieces of this. I don't know if we want to enhance this, but yeah, I'll let you kick it off and keep going.
Yeah, every step in the process should, in my mind, your company should have what that ideal process is, and then have a sequence or some sort of, however you document your processes, have it in place, and that's what everyone follows. So, okay, they're accepted. This is X start date. So you should have a sequence leading up to that, and a sequence that happens after that, and then a sequence that starts X amount of days before their last day of their assignment. So all of that almost becomes, you know, you don't even have to think about it. And the recruiter's just, boom, it's done. Oh, hey, here's my reminder to follow up with so-and-so. And it just becomes easy and scalable.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that is really what it is you got to have these, the process touch points, you know, put together. And again, do you need a lot of technology? No, I don't think so. I just think you need to have thoughtful, relevant, you know, pieces that, you know, you're using technology.
Content is king, and you know, again, to compare it to sales, but sales and recruiting are so intertwined and so similar. You know, you don't want to just be like reaching out to check in or poke them, but you actually want to deliver something that can help them. And I know Mike will know this because Talent Inc. helps with, you know, interview tips and career coaching and stuff like that. But give me something that delivers value to the candidate. They'll appreciate that more than just a generic email or text message that doesn't really get them where they want to go.
Totally.
Yeah, I mean, people need help. If I had to go find a job today, I would probably, I mean, I'd have to treat it like a full-time job, right? And like go back to the drawing board and like do a bunch of research. And people aren't professionals at interviewing. Most aren't. They're not professionals at, you know, preparing for this new journey and this new process and the questions that are going to be coming at them or the things that they should be thinking about. So as much as you can help throughout that process while they're deployed, you know, prior to getting to their next step, you know, you're top of mind, which is, you know, helpful for them and helpful for you if you can continue to work with them.
Definitely. And we get into, okay, they're hired, so they found that assignment. You know, I think this probably has automation undertones to it. And so, you know, Ashley, I'll let you lead on this one. So they got the assignment. I think you mentioned this before, but no call, no show is a big one. You know, and again, when they have the power of choice and they can go anywhere they want, they can work wherever, even if it's 25 cents more an hour, they're going to work there. So what do you do to keep them engaged and make sure they show up?
Right. I loved what Michael was talking about and Matt about, you know, the content and making sure that you're not just sending some random message to check in, that you're giving them something of value, giving, not taking. So I think that is key. You know, building that relationship, that's something recruiters can do. Machines and software can't necessarily do that on their own. They need that human touch. You know, I feel like I'm going to probably just keep saying the same thing, but it's just that element of the process needs to be well integrated between the automation and the technology and the human.
Yeah, and to add to that, it's a combination of both people and technology. I've seen more and more agencies deploy, you know, the candidate care engagement specialist type of role to help with this. Again, to go back, it's not something that any of the four of us offer, but there's really good worker apps out there. And the idea is that if someone, you know, does no show or can't make it, you have a pool of workers ready to go that you can broadcast that job to. And so the apps and giving them a personalized branded experience, I think is the future. And a lot of agencies have already adopted that or are thinking of adopting that. I think that will go a long way to helping both retain that talent, but also, you know, give them something to be excited about when they log in the morning and go on their phone and go into your app to see what work's available.
I love that idea.
And that's a good segue too, because, you know, say they continue on, you know, can that app be used, you know, to you know, and what else? How do we keep those lines of communication open during the assignment? Is it through that?
Especially if you're talking about like high volume or light industrial, or even like, you know, per diem nursing, where you might have an individual go to multiple shifts in, you know, even a single day, but definitely in the week, keeping them, you know, knowledgeable of everything that's available and how they can get there, and give them directions on a map, ensure that they, you know, get there via navigation. There's a lot to be said about the problems that those tools are solving for.
Absolutely. I mean, it's sort of the same due diligence that you look at if you have someone not show up for a meeting with any of us or a demo with any of our companies. You know, what happened, like why? So if you know the why, you can sort of fix it. And, you know, with light industrial and a lot of temp staffing, it's just sort of nothing you can do. It's the person, and have a backfill ready is the perfect solution, but also making sure they have the location information that they need, making sure that, you know, your reminders are getting through to them, and just, you know, the simple stuff that you assume is working, you know, you want to make sure that all that is firing when it's supposed to.
Yeah, I think don't overlook the operational touch points. You know, have you logged into your pay portal? Have you, you know, even the referrals, the strategy around the referrals during that assignment is, hey, if you're happy, go find other people that are happy as well. And I think that that's, you know, super important in terms of, you know, how we kind of get, you know, we just keep those lines of communication open, and be smart with, you know, don't email an 18-year-old. You know, maybe look at texting, maybe look at like, I think, Matt, you said it when we first started, is, you know, be where they want to be. Like if it's texting, if it's, you know, match up what your communication looks like with how they're using it, and be smart about it. All right. All right, let's get into our final section here in terms of the redeploying, and you know, then we can finish up with the summary. But all right, we've got an A player, and you know, what do? Like, how do we keep that A player going? How do we keep that A player with the relationship with the recruiter? Because I think this is a crucial section. So, Ashley, I think you're up on this one. Again, automation undertones. I mean, I love it. I love it because it's automation everything. But
yeah, I think, to what I alluded to before, you know when their assignment end date is. It's in the system. So having a sequence, some sort of process in place that's teed off of that date is a real easy win. Having well-matched jobs ready for them. Hey, I see your assignment is ending in, you know, a month, whatever your, you know, your timeline needs to be. And here's 3 jobs that I think you could be a great fit for. Let me know if you're interested, and just keep on them, but giving them that next step, not just, hey, how's it going? Or, hey, what do you want to do next? You know, like, push them along and give them the answer. Make it easy.
well, I think jobs are content, and to the point of, like, we have a lot of content. Like a job is a blog post, you know, with a payoff. So it's like, if you have all this content, and the largest amount of content that you have is most likely your jobs, you know, yeah, be smart about it. Hey, yeah, we don't want to lose you. We got another great job right here. And a lot of it is just the effort. And even to Matt's point about, you know, can an app be worked into that? You know, if they're already on the app, what does that do to keep them going and kind of, you know, put them to the next assignment?
Yeah, and there's great redeployment and engagement providers like Herefish and Sense that are out there that can automate that. But even if you haven't adopted like an automation strategy, at the very least, whoever's in charge of maintaining that relationship should be setting a task in their tracker or in their bullhorn, whatever it might be, to follow up with someone X amount of days before, or X amount of hours before their assignment ends, to have them thinking about the next one. Again, it's not all about technology. Technology is an enhancer, but at the end of the day, you want your recruiters and candidate care folks and engagement specialists focus on relationship building, and they need to find a fine line between adopting technology, but also the human touch of maintaining that relationship.
Yeah, and I think, you know, I put this in here, and you know, because I do think that you know, not everyone's an A player. They're B, they're C, they show up to work. You know, I still don't think you need to forget them. So yeah, because a lot of times we focus on the A player, or those that had an assignment, or, you know, those that are just your best, your NPCs, whatever. I think what you want to look at is, you know, we want to know if they ended their assignment, if they were let go. We want to know why, because a lot of that data can be used in a QBR that sales uses for that client. Hey, we've had 5 people just quit the assignment over the last 2 months, and here's why. Your training's not good. And I think, you know, that is because we deem them a B or C player there, you know, DNU or whatever, but it could be the fact that, you know what, let's dig into it a little bit more. And automation helps that, because you can just ask for feedback, you know, as somebody ends, because you never know when they're going to end an assignment. So I do think that there should be a part of your candidate experience that does focus on, you know, ending the assignment early, termination, B or C, because I think you'll learn something from that. I think the staffing firm definitely does. So, final.
You exit to your internal employees, why wouldn't
Yeah.
you exit to candidates that don't work out?
And not all exits are good. So, I mean, it's, you know, that, and that's the thing is you want to know why.
Mm-hmm.
So we talk a lot on, and this is our final one until we get into the summary real quick here. And I know we're running up on 5 minutes left, but, you know, what recommendations would we have for those, you know, executive recruitment firms, direct hire? We focus a lot, obviously, on temporary labor or temp to hire, but what would you guys say, you know, what should they be focusing on? And, you know, probably in your wheelhouse, Ashley, is kicking this off on the automation one.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, prior to coming to Tracker, I was director of marketing at Jackson Physician Search for 3 years. So we very well versed in the, you know, direct hire, permanent placement side of things. And I mean, I've also worked on the other side. So the biggest difference is it's less about, with direct hire, it's less about your firm's brand and culture and anything to do with you really, because you're putting them permanently with another company. With it staffing and temp, you know, you're doing all this stuff to keep these candidates engaged and on contracts and get them reassigned. But with direct hire, and it's not one and done, because those people can always come back, and people change careers every 3-5 years. There's some statistic. So you definitely don't want to be one and done, but at the same time, your approach is a lot different. And it's tricky too, because usually you're not really able to promote or advertise the facility or the company that you're hiring for, sort of like secret. So that kind of adds some additional challenges on how to sell that in, like selling someone a job and they can't know the biggest part about the job. So I think, you know, part of that candidate experience is making sure that you're not making them feel like an outsider or making them feel like they're not in the loop, but also balancing the needs of your client and not, you know, also protecting your own interests. So there's a lot of balance that has to go on there. And it's going to depend on the industry and the company, but it needs to be, people should be aware that you have to address that.
Awesome. Well, we've quickly in our hour have built the, you know, we've crafted the ultimate candidate experience. Let's summarize a little bit here. And, you know, so just as we end this, if we've created it, we've given great suggestions to those that have attended today and those that'll listen in the future. But how do we track it? What KPI should we use? How do we know that this is successful? Because what we're trying to tell them is this is, you know, what does success look like? It looks like this, looking at each one of these areas. But what are those KPIs? And Mike, I'll start with you on, you know, what you think in terms of how do we measure success?
Revenue.
Easy.
Yeah, I mean, from a candidate experience standpoint, I think it is very easy to see and really to track referrals, right? Referrals, repeat business, and kind of the relationships that are built individually, you know, with your internal kind of team. I think it's a fun way to track, right? Track performance and track success. And I think you'll, you know, if you set up some type of foundation for that, and even simple ways to do it, there's a lot of benefit for your organization to create those. But two, I think it'll be very easy to see kind of, you know, when you do make changes, how it impacts some of the success and some of those metrics over time.
Yep.
Yeah, and a lot of people use NPS for their client satisfaction, but there's no reason not to use it for candidate satisfaction as well. Retention of candidates, how long it takes you to place these candidates, and if there's outliers or if certain recruiters have, you know, quicker placement times than others, maybe there's something there to look at. Yeah, and like you said, referrals and repeat business key.
Yeah, I think the KPIs are going to be dependent on the tool that you're measuring. We're very focused on, you know, how many qualified leads come in, how many convert, how much recruiting pipeline have we built, how far did those leads get in the candidate pipeline to the recruitment process. But other tools might be looking at things like sourcing and job board spend and things like that. I think the more important thing not only is what you're measuring, but how you're measuring it and what tools that you've adopted, whether it's built into your ATS, or there's a lot of really strong reporting tools out there to help determine whether or not what you're investing in is giving you a true ROI.
Good. Yeah, definitely NPS, I think, is an easy one. I think there's always, feedback ratings. So yeah, I appreciate that. I mean, again, we got to measure that stuff. So what are one or two things staffing firms, when they take away and they talk about this and all the things that we've said, what are the one or two things they should be doing right now that they aren't doing? Like, where should they start? What could be tomorrow's project among other ones? Ashley, I'll start with you.
Sure. I think one thing that I don't see a lot of, which I think is a huge benefit, is enabling and empowering the recruiters to build their own, brand as a recruiter, their reputation as a job search advisor, how they listen. Like, our industry, we don't always have the best, there's a little bit, in some industries, there's a little bit of a stigma with the recruiters. So I think we have to work even harder to build these relationships and make sure they're good relationships, and we're not ghosting and we're not doing these kinds of things. Most recruitment firms get paid from the client. The client pays them to fill a job order. So the focus is on the client a lot of times. But the candidate is not a commodity, as we well know now. Candidates are highly valuable, and we need to find a way to also service them and make sure that we are enabling that experience. And that's the recruiter's number one job, in my opinion.
I'll give you one thing to do and one thing not to do. The first thing to do is interview your candidates and your workers and ask them what's going well or what's not working so well, what part of the process can be improved. The same way you probably ask your customers for feedback, asking your candidates what's going well and what isn't. And then when it comes to technology specifically, you don't want to bite off more than you can chew, because so many people invest in all this technology and it never gets implemented the right way. You want to partner with companies that are going to put as much time and effort into the implementation as you are, and also you want to stagger it and have a really clear roadmap rather than trying to implement 6 things at once and none of them really get implemented the right way. You want to do each one the right way.
Yeah, man, I love that. I love gathering the gathering of the feedback. I'm very much in the product world, and we're always looking for critical feedback, right? Like, you always don't want to hear how good you're doing. You really actually want to hear where you can improve. The one thing that I would say that I think is important is just similar to what Matt said, but helping lift candidates up, whether they're coming to your staffing firm or you're replacing them or whatever it might be. But people need help in the space. They really do, when they're in this job search process, or they're currently working with you, or they're working at one of your partners. They want to be communicated with. They want their voices to be heard, and they're not professional job seekers. Like, that's our role in this industry, and I think that we can help lift a lot of candidates up, and in the meantime, doing that helps your business. So that's where I would spend a lot of time thinking about.
Yeah, I have 2 things. I'm going to steal Matt's idea. I think staffing firms right now should walk through their candidate experience. I think somebody in there, whether it's a branch manager, leadership team, recruiter, they should walk through it. I guarantee you they will pick out a ton of gaps, issues, roadblocks, anything else. And then the second thing I would say is look at those areas that we kind of touched on and figure out where your biggest gaps are. Pick one area, focus on one area that you have, huge gap. Look at what you're doing right now, and then be able to say, okay, what technology do we want to use to fix it? Because I'm sure there's technology out there. All right, guys, we're gonna end it with this. So any final takeaways? We'll go around the horn. Anything that you guys want to call out? Anything that we discussed? So Matt, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I think that, a ton of good content and good conversation here. From my standpoint, all I'll leave you with is, if you're interested in connecting with me or learning more about Staffing Engine and recruiting acceleration, hit me up on LinkedIn. Let's connect, and appreciate all your time.
Perfect. Mike.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. The only other thing I would say, we're rolling out some cool stuff with Haley right now. None of it's it's all free, and we're excited about it. It's all focused on how to improve the candidate experience on the Haley career portals. We really think we'll help drive a lot more conversion on those sites. Hopefully get a lot more candidates in your process, create some cool stuff for you all. So you guys, if you don't have it live already, it's going live in the next like 2 weeks. So we're excited about that. So Jeff, thanks for inviting all of us.
Thank you. Round it up with Ashley.
Yeah, I mean, this has been an absolute blast. It's been such a fun experience getting to talk with the three of you. Same as Matt said, so I'm Ashley. I'm from Tracker. Tracker, if you don't know, is a completely integrated ATS and CRM. We've just launched in Q1 full automation of our sequences, which all of these things we've been talking about are processes that you could and should, have very streamlined. If you're interested in talking to me or anyone else on our team, please hit me up on LinkedIn or reply to my newsletter, which you probably may also be getting to.
Yeah, it's email. Why not? So, no, this has been great. I want to thank the panel. Definitely for those that are attending, find them on LinkedIn. They're on panels, different types of panels, gives great perspective. So please follow them. Learn more about the companies, learn more about the whole ecosphere, because I didn't know half the technologies that are out there too. And all of us can help you guys kind of figure out what's the best for your staffing firm and what you should do and what you shouldn't do. So we don't have time. We're a little bit over, so I don't want to spend a lot of time on questions. If you do have questions, please put that in. You will receive a survey about the lunch with Haley. And so just put those questions in there. I'll get that information. I will respond back to you, I promise. If you want to talk with any one of them and you want to reach out, you can also put that in there and I will make sure I forward that to them if you don't find them on LinkedIn or anything else. So please let us know how we did. Hopefully this was helpful. A couple plugs. So we do send out monthly big ideas. Basically that is, we focus on a theme per month. We send out, ebooks, information, recaps. And so you can go to /big-ideas on the Haley Marketing website and, be on our list. We'd love to have you on there. It's just all information just to help you guys do your jobs better. And then finally, our product demo is going to be on Tuesday, April 19th. I call it Forensic Automation. So it's really how to find value in your platform. Right now, I read a statistic. I think there's 1,200 staffing firms that have automation implemented in their firm between Herefish and Sense. And some aren't finding the value. Some need a little bit of help. So we figured we'd put this product demo out and kind of talk through what does it look like from an audit perspective and where can you find some low-hanging fruit and some value in there. So definitely join us. You can go to lunchwithhaley.com. We will send emails as always to register. So register for that. And I appreciate it, panelists. Thank you guys. I think you guys did a great job. Hopefully, a lot of us got some value out of it. And we will end it here. And you can get back to your master's coverage or opening day coverage. So everyone have a great day. Thanks a lot for joining us. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.